VGC is supported by Patreon. Check out patreon.com/videogameschronicle for more podcasts, ad-free browsing, and extra content. Thank you for your support. It's Nintendo Switch 2 launch week, and we're here with our impressions of our time so far with the Nintendo Switch 2 console and its launch games. I'm Jordan Midler, joined as always by the Nintendo team, Chris Scullion and Andy Robinson. Chris, how are you doing? It's Nintendo Switch 2 week.
I'm psyched and pumped in equal measure. Can't wait.
Psyched and pumped. Andy, psyched and pumped, or less psyched and less pumped?
I'm more excited than I was. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to hopefully playing it on a long flight this week.
That would be the dream.
Hopefully.
The three of us sat there holding hands playing Nintendo Switch 2, because of course you can play it with one Joy-Con, so we'd still be able to hold hands.
That's true.
You both have got experience with the console in a preview form. I've yet to tread the boards of the Nintendo Switch 2, but I shall be picking mine up this week. Andy, people may notice this week that there will be no formal official Nintendo Switch 2 review. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? What's happening?
Yeah,
what's
so
the situation?
that's official now. I mean, obviously, bar us being blindsided by some special exclusive influencer
That's the postman
reviews, which would make Nintendo look very silly, to be honest, because they've kind of put out a statement and everything that's embargoed for today. It's not really surprising if you've seen, kind of the press reports that have been doing the rounds. So from my understanding, it's at least the first time in probably well over 20 years, maybe ever, that there's been no pre-release reviews for a Nintendo console. I mean, certainly as long as Chris and I have been working. I mean, I started into the GameCube gen, working professionally in the games media. We definitely had DS's. We definitely, Wii. They had us at the Wii Flat, which they had a flat in London where you went, and I remember playing Zelda Twilight Princess for like 3 days, reviewing that there. 3DS, Wii U. I'd probably say any platform holder, actually.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, certainly Xbox Series X was out with good time. PS5 was a little bit less, but we still had it pre-release. Same with PS4. Same with Xbox One. Yeah, it's the first time in at least 20 years, probably ever, that there's no pre-release reviews for a Nintendo console. According to a company spokesperson who spoke to me, Nintendo decided not to send Switch 2 review units to the press ahead of launch because important features and updates will only be available via a system update on the day of the console's release, which of course is June the 5th this week. It did not. Sorry, that's the
Nintendo ninjas coming to get you.
That's my alarm telling me to check in for our flight.
Oh.
Which is the wrong day.
Yeah.
So that was a useful interruption. So they didn't say what these updates entail, or indeed explain why we couldn't just go and review the games at an in-person event. If that was the case, like we did, as I mentioned there with Wii. Yeah. Neither did it kind of explain why the press can't be trusted to cover products that are unfinished with more updates coming, which kind of we've been doing for the last 20 years, right? Mm-hmm. That's completely normal. Of course, how and when any game publisher decides to distribute their review products is, totally their prerogative. The media has no rights to early samples. And of course, over the last decade, we've seen game coverage change drastically in terms of like shifting more to post-release. Reviews used to be the final word on a game, and that's absolutely not the case now. So, it's a different world. I acknowledge that. However, a lack of coverage is bad for our readers, I would say, and I think few would disagree. When the console arrives this week, there's going to be again, bar some. We don't know what every single outlet's been told. I've spoke to journalists at the biggest publications, and they're seemingly in the same boat as us. And to the point where Nintendo's put a statement out. I mean, if there's a review on the New York Times tomorrow, and they've told everyone else that they can't do reviews because of a day one update, then, someone's going to look silly, or both of us. But obviously, to my knowledge, there'll be no reviews of games. There's going to be no analysis of hardware performance or battery life. There's going to be no testing of the key features like game chat or backwards compatibility. You're not going to see any hidden gems unearthed or, potential dodgy ports highlighted before anyone spends their money. And when the reviews eventually do arrive, a lot of critics are going to have been incentivized to kind of rush through the games as quickly as possible, because that's what, Google and social media demands these days. I don't think it's going to matter for Nintendo. Of course it's not. Otherwise they wouldn't have made this decision. It's going to be, I think between us, we've got about 6 Switches coming, right? This console's going to sell gangbusters. To people predominantly who are not as concerned about the critical consensus as they might have been in the years past, right? They don't really, care what the press say about this thing at launch. They're buying it anyway. And I'm one of those people as well. Mm-hmm. Even if they said it was awful, I'm going to buy it. And of course, we'll continue to cover Switch 2 as after the console comes out, when we get our units. For us, of course, like in the media, it's disappointing. We've been saying all year it's a really tough time for independent publications. And we've been calling for all of our readers to kind of support us on Patreon. The big hope this year for everyone working in the media was GTA 6 and pre-launch Switch 2 review coverage, and that's now off the table. So, the year just got a little bit tougher for everyone. And also it means that, as we've kind of discussing at the top of this, we're going to be doing our Switch 2 review coverage whilst going to Summer Game Fest. Probably the biggest games event of the year in terms of the effort we have to put into covering everything. And Nintendo would have been well aware of that. But I'd say probably, aside from obviously consumers, more so the media, the people who miss out the most are all of the third-party developers who've got games on Switch 2.
100%.
Which is just, it's really kind of strange to me with how they've been promoting third-party games with Switch 2, that big reveal, look how many games we've got, and a lot of the kind of talk you're hearing from companies like Take-Two is that Nintendo's really been trying to engage us to support them and be involved, and then now they don't have any reviews. Many publishers have kind of reached out to us and other publications, asking like, hey guys, like, when can we send you review code? When can we do reviews? They've been seemingly as in the dark as we have from our conversations. And some have even kind of suggested that, hey, maybe we shouldn't have been at launch. Maybe we should have gone a bit further back because they're now kind of launching with no editorial coverage at all. Yeah. There's a chance that this probably was a technical nightmare for Nintendo. We're seeing people who the inevitable pre-launch, kind of Russian street date dodgers who are putting the now world exclusive videos up. You're seeing that they're kind of unable to play any games seemingly because of it requiring a system update. I'd also think it's fair to stress that there's no precedent at all for Nintendo being, well, not at all, but there's not really any precedent for Nintendo being adversarial with press, certainly in terms of reviews. In my experience, and I'm sure Chris would agree, I actually think they're one of the most critic-friendly companies. They often supply review code months, many weeks in advance.
Yeah, definitely.
They've certainly been very supportive of VGC on that front from day one. And I personally don't believe that it's anything to do with confidence in Switch 2 either, because as I'll get to soon, I was at Nintendo about a week ago. I spent a day with their big launch games, Mario Kart World and Switch 2 Welcome Tour, and they're brilliant. They're really good. I can't wait to play more of them. So in my opinion, I think this decision is likely just as motivated by, Nintendo's paranoia around leaks as it is with any kind of missing functionality. Those leaked videos of the consoles not being able to do anything kind of strengthens that, I guess. Consoles have had required day one patches for over a decade. It's not new. I don't believe that Nintendo couldn't have found a way for reviewers to experience the missing features, without this patch.
Yeah.
I think in the end, it is kind of a bad look for Nintendo at a time when a lot of their decisions are being received negatively with fans. I mean, obviously, you've seen that they've kind of pioneered the $80 price point for games with Switch 2, which you're now seeing kind of Xbox and other companies follow suit. There's the kind of prevalence of game key cards, which is annoying a lot of people, especially preservationists. These seemingly the few options they've given third-party developers in terms of size of the game cards. So they're just basically, glamorized download codes on a bit of plastic.
Yeah.
And of course, you've got the company kind of regularly declining to disclose who's actually making its games these days. We still have no idea who's making Donkey Kong, for example. I've been on this rant before. I think history tells us that a lack of transparency with the press isn't good for consumers.
Yeah.
The big example being Cyberpunk 2077's, shocking console launch, which was a direct result of them withdrawing review code in this style. And it was a nasty surprise for many players on day one, finding that out what the state that version was in. On the flip side, many companies, I say some companies in the past, notably Bethesda, have kind of briefly implemented a no pre-release reviews policy. And then you kind of saw the flip side where really great games like Doom, Prey, Dishonored 2 missed out on a tremendous amount of positive coverage at launch. And they're kind of this, if you kind of dig down in the sales curves, it did suggest that a lot of players did want to hear from reviews before they spent money on kind of like non-known quantities. So obviously Nintendo's made its decision. On VGC, we'll be covering Switch 2 and its launch games comprehensively, as quickly as we're able to. Obviously, sadly, Summer Game Fest means that our coverage is probably going to take a little bit longer than we would have liked. And then I just finished by saying, if anyone listening has got any suggestions about, how they'd like to see us, cover Switch 2 in the coming weeks, we'd love to hear it. I guess it's an opportunity to do something unique, maybe. So let us know in the Discord, let us know on the website comments.
Yeah. I think we just do Mario Kart tournaments for money, and that's it. Nothing else. Just betting on Mario Kart. Before we carry on, Chris, any thoughts as a former Nintendo bod while the guy for Resident Evil 4 breaks into your house?
I was literally about to say that. I apologise profusely. There's a gardener outside in the next door neighbour who's going wild just now.
It's not Nintendo, is it?
I thought it was a Resi guy going to break through the window. It was Shigsy himself with a chainsaw going to kick the window in. It's really frustrating because I've worked obviously in Official Nintendo magazine in the past, and like Andy says, we had a lot of access to the consoles and handhelds pre-launch, so we could prepare our coverage really well, and it gives you time to to digest as well. Like the longer you have with these things before release, the longer you get to sit and think about it and say, do you know something, I don't like this, or do you know, people aren't talking enough about this bit. This bit's really cool. What I'm worried we're going to get is a race to the bottom where as soon as things come out, everyone goes, right, quick, hammer this and get the coverage up. And invariably that might mean that the first coverage you'll see, whether that's from press or quite possibly from influencers, because everyone's receiving things at the same time, is going to be the more extreme. This is the best thing you've ever seen in your life, or this is the worst thing that we've ever seen. And then over time, the more nuanced takes will eventually start to appear. So it's disappointing. It's a shame. I again, like Andy says, it's the third party devs I feel the most for, because there's games like Fast Fusion and Survival Kids, which quite possibly could be hidden gems on day one, and nobody's going to be talking about those because there'll be zero articles on any website saying, by the way, you want to check out Fast Fusion, or Survival Kids is the co-op kind of gem that everyone should be getting, especially if this game share feature works as well as it looks like it might. That's something we don't know until day one, so it's frustrating, but we're just going to have to make the best of it as we can when we finally get our hands on them, and like Andy says, kind of cover it in an interesting way. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, something we do know a lot about is a game that you've both played, Mario Kart World. You've recently played more of it, Andy. How was your time playing more Mario Kart?
So at the time of this going out, there should be a preview on the site. There's about 15 minutes of new footage of me playing as well. So I got to spend, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 hours with it, something like that. It was a day at Nintendo, which, we also sprinkled in probably an hour of welcome tour. So maybe I played more than 4 hours. I think there were a couple of things that surprised me having played it for a bit longer, outside of like just a 10-minute blast demo, which is all anyone else has experienced before. The first thing that surprised me was that it's actually more of a departure than it looks. I mean, I remember the first time I saw that footage on the first Switch 2 teaser, and I probably said on here, it just looks like Mario Kart 8. Like, it must be doing something different. Like, graphically, it's not. I mean, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a stunning game.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's not, it didn't really, scream to me that it was doing anything particularly exciting. Then you had the announcement of the open world in the Switch 2 showcase, which did have me a lot more excited for it. I was struggling to be hyped for a Mario Kart game to prop up a launch lineup. But the idea that you got a meteor experience, especially for solo players, where you can go and explore this big world and find secrets and completing challenges was quite exciting, right? But the thing that surprised me sitting playing it for a good few hours with other members of the press was that it is more that the core gameplay is more of a departure than it looks, right? I mean, first of all, because all of the tracks are interconnected, you are like, instead of like the usual kind of like 4 race cups, where you're just doing 3 laps and then next, 3 laps next, because this one, they're kind of big enough that you drive from the end of one course to the start of another. And that means that a lot of it is more of a frantic, like A to B excursion than it is like it's like Gumball Rally, right? You're just like kind of storming from one side of like a continent to the other, it feels like. But it's in that, like, all of the, like, I played for hours and I still felt like I hadn't scratched the surface. Like, I wasn't playing it correctly. I'd only scratched the surface of its mechanics. That was a pleasing thing. It feels like it's going to be a really deep game for like experienced players, because like hidden in plain sight in all of the tracks, like you play it and your instinct is there's a corner coming up or there's a chicane coming up. You're going to charge your drift. And you're going to drift perfectly on your racing line around the corner, and then you're going to let your get your boost at the end. So you play like that, and then eventually you realise that, like, I was playing against hard AI, that it's not really making a dent in terms of your lead, and you start noticing that hidden in plain sight are all of these like extra paths, right? Like rails to grind on, walls to kind of like wall ride along, that lead up to different paths. And if you forgive like the 20-year-old reference, it's a bit like SSX Tricky.
That's the best thing you've said about this game so far to me, was the SSX Tricky reference.
It's like you can imagine that, and again, probably a more recent one would be Mario Kart Tour, which I really, Mario Kart Tour, the mobile game, which I really liked, where basically you can imagine you can just trick your way through the entire course. Like, being really good at this game, it seems to me, is less about tight racing lines and more about, you're going to like grind across here and then chain that onto a wall ride and then switch. You can even switch from one rail to the other, right? You can switch between. It looks like it's going to be a really cool game to master. And it kind of like, even like at the basic level, right? It puts you in, like, it makes you make decisions. Like, you're coming up to a corner now, you can start training your drift, like the safe, reliable drift, or you can now like you can charge up a jump, like a hop, and you can use that. So you can see the corner coming up and you can see like, well, I can even have a drift around this corner, or there's a rail on it. So instead I'll charge my hop, and if I time that properly, I'll jump onto the rail and I'll grind it. And then you get like loads of like little boosts off of that. And then inevitably that'll kind of lead to another, like a wall or something. You can jump off and onto that. But if you mistime the hop, then you haven't got a drift or anything. And it's a lot more of a kind of like a risk reward type of thing. So that was a surprising thing. Like, the other surprising thing was that, like, when I went into it, it was a sandbox that I found really interesting. Like, it's like, the Forza Horizons, style. is such a perfect new direction for Mario Kart to go into, right? But actually, having spent like a couple of hours with it, it ended up being like the less compelling part of Mario Kart World for me, which was a big surprise. I'd say like driving, it sounds a really cool idea, like driving from one course to the other, like you finish it and you go to the other, but a lot of it's just kind of like a straight line. And it didn't seem, again, I've only played for a few hours and it's not like I've got someone over my shoulder explaining the game to me. It didn't feel like it was, very consequential. Like, I've just hit you with a shell and I've gone past you. Okay. So it was cool, but it wasn't like, this is exciting. And then also free roam, which I didn't get to play a lot. I only got to sample a little bit. Dare I say, it felt a little bit sparse. Like I was like, okay, what am I doing? But again, I've only got to play a little bit. By far, the best thing in Mario Kart World is the knockout tour, right? Which is what everyone else played at the Switch 2 kind of public tours. It just feels absolutely perfect for this style of game, like an open world Mario Kart with 24 players, right? So it just means it's like a one route epic sprint, with utter chaos of 24 players and items like bashing about. It's exciting. Obviously there's checkpoints and then people get eliminated by those checkpoints, and it's brilliant. Like, I mean, I'm like sweating by the end of some of these. With the caveat that it's always different playing with anonymous online players, than with a load of people in a room. But it's just brilliant. It's one of the best modes in Mario Kart ever, like easily. And then also like the sandbox like turns into something like of a social hub for this. Like, so you're in the lobby, like waiting for players to join, and you're just driving around the sandbox and you can like see other players on the map and you can go and like teleport to them. And then like we've got, you've seen our footage, we've just got like about 15 cows like driving around honking, and you can like get up photo mode and then do poses, and it's like, it's good fun. And I can really see how game chat would like really enhance that as well. Like if you were playing with mates. But probably the other surprise, which has kind of cost me 50 quid in pre-order spend now, is the camera support. Like it just really elevates the experience. Like you calibrate it, where like you'll position and shrink this circle around your face, right? And so it's that's me. And then like the arcade Mario Kart games, it'll kind of overlay you on the UI, so your head's like floating, and so you can see other players, like the reactions, like their grimace, their kind of cheers and stuff. And brilliantly, like when you've won the cup, like it puts your head like at the end, and you can like kind of like celebrate and stuff. And it's such a small touch, but it works so elegantly, and it's like it's a ton of fun. Like as soon as we're done, I knew I had to get a camera for this game. Not just I can see it being pretty essential for Mario Kart fans now, not just for the in-person multiplayer, but the online multiplayer. It just elevates the experience and makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah.
So in short, Mario Kart World, good. Yes, I'm looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to blasting that a lot more.
It's the 24 player, it's the knockout tour thing that's really got me excited for it, because because I played it at that event a while back, and I thought by the end of it I was like, that's amazing, because obviously the idea of racing games where the person who's in last gets knocked out isn't new. Like a million racing games have had that in the past, but it's always my least favourite part of a game, because when you get a game and it's like eliminator mode, and it's like, what it basically means is instead of you doing 3 laps like you usually would, you're doing 7 laps until like the other 7 guys get knocked out, and then like, okay. But the fact it's point to point, and you're not just doing the same laps over and over again, to me when I finished it I was like, this is Outrun. This is like a kind of massively online Mario Kart version of Outrun, where the scenery's changing with every checkpoint. You feel like you're making proper progress, and you're racing to see what the next bit is, like the next part of the environment. It's like I'm genuinely, that's the most exciting thing about Switch 2 in general for me, is getting to play that again.
Yeah, it feels like it's going to have a real moment, because I mean, who's buying the Switch 2 and not getting this game? So it's going to be a case of everyone who gets the Switch 2 has it. A lot of people are going to get the camera, and I can already see that people are already talking about it in our Discord. Like the Discord game nights are going to be so fun. Like just
you can use USB-C cameras as well. By the way, if you've already got one lying around.
Which is another thing we'd have loved to experimented with before launch, to say these cameras work and these cameras don't. It's another thing that would have been nice to test.
Can we jam a Game Boy camera into it via multiple different connectors?
Playing with my dreams.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll put like an 8K Arri Alexa camera into it and watch the Switch 2 explode. Yeah, that's a really exciting one for me. The open world stuff is interesting. Obviously, they showed in like the pre-release footage that there'll be a little bit where it's like there's 3 kind of tight ropes and you have to like jump between them to get over this gap. Like, I wonder how many of those little challenges actually exist in the open world, but we'll soon find out. Andy, you said you played a bit more Welcome Tour. I'm seeing a lot of Welcome Tour stuff pop up on social media that almost feels like spoilers at this point, because that whole thing is just weird wee stuff. So very briefly.
I think Weird Nintendo is my favourite Nintendo, and this is definitely a weird Nintendo game. I still don't understand why it's not a free packing title. I think it's only like £5, $10, something like that. But they're still strange to me, because it basically is the first thing everyone should play on Switch 2 by the looks of it. It's like, it tells you about the hardware. It's got lots of little quizzes in it, and you literally put a little man, over a giant Switch 2, and you go inside of it and explore the innards, and it tells you how everything works. And there's like a mix. There's some really great mini games in there, like from like the brilliant, bizarre Nintendo stuff, like playing Super Mario Brothers in 4K but pixel perfect, where the screen slowly unravels as you play it. But then there's some stuff that teaches you more about the system, like. Seeing seeing HDR, or the new kind of like HD Rumble, like games geared to that. And then there was stuff like you can use the mouse to play golf, like a top-down golf game, which is just great. I can see some people like doing some good, like some pretty competitive score attacks on those sorts of games. So I'm genuinely going to play that first.
Yeah,
like I'm going to sit down and 100% it.
It's like Astro's Playroom.
It ticks my my OCD box. It really, like, because you collect stamps as you go around it. Like, you have to, in order to lock, say you start off on the left Joy-Con, and in order to go to the next area, which will be like the screen, the display, you have to collect all the stamps on the first Joy-Con. So in other words, you get a stamp from every feature on it. So the D-pad, the joystick, the microphone. So you have to go, and they're invisible, so you have to go around and find them. So it's a nice little treasure hunt, basically. And then you're collecting medals from the different mini games. Like, so they'll unlock like harder versions as well. So if you get like 2 medals in that UFO game where you're using the mouse to like dodge spiky balls for as long as possible, it'll unlock a harder, like version 2. So I honestly, I'm looking forward to blitzing through that.
It's fitting, because it's just as convoluted getting into the actual Nintendo museum. Jump through as many hoops. But no, I'm the same. Like, when I tried it at the event and saw that it had like basically every little mini game's got achievements and target scores and stuff. Like the Mario one, it's like you can do the Mario, but then it's like if you go down the pipe, then you get a wee achievement, or if you do it in a certain time, you get another achievement. I love stuff like that. So, and the fact that it doesn't just say, I don't know if this is one of the reasons why it's not included at launch, is because as built in, is because I think it goes a bit above and beyond what you would expect from a tutorial. It doesn't just say, oh, by the way, it does this. It looks like at times it goes into actual detail as to how it works and like the engineering behind it, almost like Game Maker Garage and stuff like that used to do in the past. Where in Labo, because the great thing about Labo I liked was it wasn't just do this, do this, do this, do this. It explained every step. When, like the piano one, it says, okay, the sensor on the Joy-Con, what it's looking for is these coloured things, and when you move them, that's what makes the notes. So that's the stuff, the really nerdy stuff that fascinates me. So that's why I think Welcome Tour is going to be day one for me. Unless day one for me is playing it on a plane, I'm probably going to wait, because I want the extra. Presumably there's certain mini games that will lock until you can actually get it on a
You're
TV.
not bringing your telly with you to sit between us on the plane?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm going to see. I'll see.
Yeah. I'm
not sure the baggage requirements allow for a 62-inch telly.
It allows for a 62-inch something. We have a lot of questions. I put this up on patreon.com/Video Games Chronicle. You can support us over there, and we got tons of questions from the VGC Maniacs. So let's get to them. El Barto says, how's the general feeling of the OS? Snappy or laggy? Does it have things like an integrated shop that does not need to boot up as an app like the Switch One? How much experience did you get with the OS, Andy? Any time?
Only the main menus. We didn't get to try the shop or anything like that. It just looks exactly the same as the as the first Switch. Literally with rounded edges, like they've rounded the edges off. They've made a big. They've emphasised a lot about the speed. So I would imagine the shop is going to be a lot faster. But again, press haven't been allowed to try it. This is kind of the new normal now. Like if you remember what booting, not PS5, but Xbox Series X in particular, it was like quite an underwhelming experience compared to like old generational shifts. Like you turn it on, expecting this next gen feeling when it's sort of like it's the same UI and all your games are there because they're backwards compatible. And that's kind of the feeling you're going to get. You're like, and your stuff will be there. But, that's the new normal.
But it makes all the noises, like when the icons pop up, when you first open it, it goes like beep, 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 and that's all you need. That's your 500
Those noises have all been spoiled for me thanks to Nintendo Today, aka Daily Spoilers.
I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo Today puts a review up later.
Today, guys, we've got the exclusive review.
And they give it 3 out of 5.
Mark Edmonds, what accessories are you picking up? Currently, I'm getting, at launch, the GameCube controller. God knows why. I just bought it because it was available. I'm going to get the stupid camera because Andy's convinced me. And at the end of the month, when it's my birthday, I'll probably buy a Pro controller. But the fact that the old one works is okay for me to kick off. So most of them for me, Chris.
Pro controller, without a doubt. Like, I only tried it once, but it's like extremely.
Is it significantly better than the Switch?
It's much
the triggers are different.
Better.
Yeah,
it feels loads better as well. It's a big. Well, I wouldn't say a big leap, but it's definitely better.
It's enough.
Well, they have them in Glasgow Airport. That's the question.
But yeah, that I'm going to get a camera now, but I'm going to wait first because I use my phone for a camera, and there's a USB-C mode. So I'm wondering if that software will work, and if it doesn't, then I'll just get the 50 quid one instead. I think those in the GameCube controller. Those are the only ones. Oh, and for no reason at all, I bought all the Street Fighter amiibo because there's a Street Fighter amiibo. I'm like the only person who's deciding to go stick with the amiibo.
Still keeping the dream alive.
So yeah, Street Fighter amiibo.
You bought a case or anything? I had the thought I need a case first.
I got a case. Yeah, I got the official one. It's quite good.
I got an unofficial one, but it looks like it does it. I don't know what it is. But yeah.
Because there's
12 quid.
There's all this scat today about the people were misreporting the fact that apparently you don't take the plastic cover off the screen, but it's the same plastic cover that's on the OLED that no one noticed. It's not the horrible sticky plastic. So
yeah, you would need like proper like
microscopic
tweezers to take it off. It's like nobody should worry about that.
And the accessories, the whole whack, apart from amiibos.
Yeah, I think the controller is a lot better. Once you use it, I think most people will be like, "Oh, I need to get one of these."
Yeah.
As I said earlier on Mario Kart, I think the camera is like essential. I'm going to be playing with my kids. They're going to love that thing. So I've got the camera, GameCube controller. Got to get an SD card as well. Remember, your old SD cards won't work.
Yeah, it's the Express format, isn't it? The one that works now. Yeah. The camera, they should port the old iToy games, like the one where you're cleaning windows. That would be a million seller.
I'd be up for that. It's a shame the Piranha Plant camera, by all accounts, is awful because it's like a 480p. Like the Game Boy camera would literally be better, which is disappointing because that's an amazing. Literally. Because the Piranha Plant camera looks great, but
yeah, you'd have to hold it like right up to your face. Yeah. The next up, Michael Gulliver. Have you spoken to any devs who have developed for Switch 1 and 2, and if it's significantly different to do so, power aside? I haven't. I'll check. Stephen Titello, over at GameFile, spoke to some folk at that original event back in April or May or whenever it was, the one in New York. They spoke to Firaxis, so there's some insight there. Andy, anything?
Yeah, but it's the same. The only developers I've spoken to on record are at those tour events, and they're not going to say it's shit, are they? Nintendo's building. I get the impression that there's the dev kits are definitely not as widely spread as they were with the original Switch. Again, the Nintendo hubris being back, and the NDAs seem to be a lot tighter. There's a lot less fewer people willing to speak, seemingly.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to be quite interested to see developers start talking about that once it's out. Frankly.
Yeah.
Interesting. Kyle Aitchison, do you ever see the game keycard concept fading out in the future, or do you think it will stay with the rise of digital games and the like? I think it's well here to stay. Like, why would they ever go back at this point? It's cheaper for them, isn't that the bottom line?
It's a tricky one because it's basically. I've been looking into this in depth, so I apologise for the boring explanation here. But Nintendo's basically painted themselves into a corner with this game keycard thing because the Switch 2 uses faster internal storage. That's the reason why only SD Express cards work, because they have to read and write at a certain speed. And those micro SD Express cards specifically start at 64 gigs. They don't start any smaller than that. Something to do with the way the buses work or something like that. But the bare minimum you can fit on that cartridge is 64 gigabytes.
Yeah.
Because any smaller doesn't fit. So basically, because Nintendo wants to make sure the cartridge performance is identical to the internal performance, then the cartridges need to be made with similar tech to those micro SD Express cards, which means they can't make a smaller cart than 64 gigs, and it means it's an expensive cart. So they've basically said to developers, the bare minimum you can get is a 64 gig card, and it's not cheap. But to kind of alleviate that, we've also got this game key card, which I'm assuming is based on Switch 1 cartridge tech because it doesn't need to be fast. And those will be like based roughly, I would guess, on the cheapest stock Switch 1 cartridge you can get. And that's why so many third-party publishers are going for that, because the savings will be quite noticeable. So they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. People want physical Switch 2 games, but the speed of the storage requires them to be expensive cartridges. So they're kind of... So it's unfortunate, but I think, yeah, like you say, it's here to stay. Everyone's going to be going with that, I think.
And
unless there's a huge revolt, then people vote not to do it.
I think people will stop talking about this in like a week at this point. Andy,
I do as well.
You're muted.
Yeah, all you heard missed is I haven't really got much to add. Nintendo games do skew more physical than the other platform holders. Mm-hmm. So I don't think physical's going away. I mean, the thing you got worth mentioning as well is that all of Nintendo's first party stuff is all on the cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So certainly it's more like, it's like Chris said, the context is kind of important, right? The cards are more expensive. They probably maybe even don't come in a smaller storage size than 64. I don't know.
They don't.
Right?
Yeah, they don't.
So it's just confusing messaging, right? It's like it feels like Xbox One days again, right? It's kind of like there is a clear advantage to having it on a game key card versus a code in a box.
Yeah.
Because you can lend it to a friend, or you can resell it, because the code's it's attached to that plastic cart, the actual license. But it's just not explained very well. It's people just kind of obviously focus on it getting ripped off, but people want an option.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the frustrating thing, is people want an option. If it's expensive, give them an option to spend more money.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of the Cyberpunk cart today, Chris. I had like a noise reaction to the fact that the cart is red plastic instead of black plastic. There we go. Next question. Justin Friedberg, what initial problems do you think Nintendo will have at launch that isn't being talked about nearly as much as it should? Obviously, this is a symptom of us not having the system. My prediction is I think the battery is going to be a lot worse than people are expecting it to be, and that will be a bit of a hard one, especially when we're kicking off with something like Mario Kart, which looks banging. It's an intense game. It's going to be intensive on the system. Chris, any teething problems you can foresee?
Yeah, the battery's going to be. I would guess the battery's going to be in line with something like the Steam Deck, which for people who kind of generally play stuff like that, it's not going to be a major issue, because I think after the initial shock of the Steam Deck, people realise that not a lot of people go on journeys long enough to let the Steam Deck's battery run out, and if they do, they usually bring a plug with them. So I think people will initially moan about the Switch 2 battery life, and then they'll realise it's perfectly livable once they kind of work around it. The other stuff I worry about, not so much the day one update, because I get the feeling, again, we don't know because we don't have them. I would guess the day one update is even just an unlock,
just a handshake.
Just I think it's going to be a really small thing, but because there are so many game key cards, I wonder how much of a kick in the servers are going to take with people downloading so many games on day one, through eShop purchases and through game key card downloads. I hope we're not going to get a situation where the servers pack in. I hope they've got enough that they're prepared enough for a heavy hit from lots of downloads. So we'll see. And
you've seen a lot of launches like this in your time. Any teething problems you think might pop up when it's being stress tested by 3 million people or however many they're expecting?
I think the battery life is definitely, I agree. Officially, I think have they said like 2 or 3 hours?
They said like 2 to 6, depending on what you're playing.
Yeah, so I think that might be a negative surprise.
Yeah.
I wonder how well game chat's going to work. I mean, it does look very poor, doesn't it? Like the frame rate and stuff. They're supposedly using Wii U technology or something, which sends off alarm bells. How far can I be from my, so I'm interested to see how that'll be. Backwards compatibility is the other thing, is that because obviously it's using emulation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be a big thing that comes out, is what games actually run better. Does some run worse? It could happen.
There's going to be one big third party Switch 1 game that runs badly on it. And that'll become the main focus. Whatever game that is.
Do you have a kart version of WWE 2K20 kicking about? Because I feel like that would be a belter to try it on the Switch.
Listen. That might actually work well.
Yeah, I suppose raw
because
power.
that was hampered by performance. That might be one of those games that just naturally catches up with itself, because it's you never know.
You never know. Next up, Viva La Hazy, who gets his own real name for this very special podcast, says, "Is this the most subdued console launch ever? Do launches even matter now, given the life expectancy of tech?" Chris Scullion, your thoughts?
I'm excited about it. I think I've seen a lot of people online saying, "Oh, this is the least excited I've been for a console launch. I'm pretty underwhelmed." I think it's just because it's the first Nintendo system I could think of, maybe since the Super Nintendo days, where it's basically just the last one but a bit better.
Yeah.
But the problem is that's what everyone wanted. Like when Switch was doing well, I remember saying for years on here, and other people were saying, Nintendo, don't roll the dice again. Don't try something weird again like you did with Wii U. Just give us this again, but more. You've cracked it with the whole handheld console thing. Just give us a Switch again, but more powerful. That's exactly what they've done. And understandably, people are just like, "Is that it?" And I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of what you wanted. So it is like Andy says, it's an Xbox Series X situation where you plug it in, it's the same stuff, and you go, it feels like you've bought a new phone instead of like a new console. Yeah. But I think in terms of when you look at the launch lineup, you've got a Street Fighter there, you've got a Cyberpunk there, you've got Civ there, you've got Fortnite, game of all time there, you've got Hitman, you've got
any more old games?
Outrageous! There's a brand new Mario Kart on there. I'm talking more in terms of the big IP. Like there's big names there, and the kind of the gimmick of being able to play them handheld is going to be new to a lot of people who don't have a Steam Deck, which is most people.
I do think it's the most underwhelming console launch I can think of. It feels a little bit cynical. They know that the launch doesn't matter. They know they're going to sell them out. The thing that matters is this Christmas period. Mm-hmm. The first Christmas period is what matters. The first Switch was really successful, partly because it launched earlier in the year, which was new for Nintendo. It launched even earlier than this. It launched in March, right? And then it was about getting building a roster of first-party games, so that first Christmas they could go and have a real stormer. And that'll be the big point for this as well. But yeah, so they haven't really, I mean, just coming back to the top, like with there being, there's no press coverage, there's no one's like putting up their videos talking about the games and the features and little things. And I can't believe that I'm going to be playing it in basically like 24 hours, right? Yeah. Like I'm going to have a Nintendo. It doesn't. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter to them. Like Nintendo don't care about this stuff. They do not care. Like they will not be swayed by the outside noise or what the industry says is the done thing to do. But certainly from my experience of playing Switch 2, I played it for about a day in total. It's Nintendo at its most safe. Probably it's ever been. But maybe that's enough. Probably that's enough. Yeah. I mean, the console is iterative. However, it's better. It feels nicer in your hands. The Joy-Cons are nicer. You know, the screen, okay, it's not quite OLED, but it's pretty much as close to OLED quality as you can get with an LCD. It's the power of the console is pleasingly powerful, right? You look at that version of Cyberpunk, it's kind of like that's pretty good. I mean, the Steam Deck, which is kind of getting probably slightly less performance, is like the size of a piece of gravel or slab. It's absolutely massive. I stopped taking that things on flight for me because it's too big
for the sake of your back.
You know, it's going to be the games again. Like, you know, I think Mario Kart's going to be great. I'm not sure about Donkey Kong. You know, they've kind of like they've made the same console more powerful. You know, which and you know, everyone likes the Switch. There's no going back, right? There's no returning after the hybrid console. They can't go back. There's only so much you can do with that concept, especially from a ergonomic standpoint, right? I mean, what are you going to do? Like put the screen on the back? Like there's only so much they can do. I get the impression that because of the timeline of when they said they started working on it, they've kind of like tried to pandemic proof it a bit with a social feature, like the emphasis on social features. You know, if you watch like the marketing for the original Switch is all like playing with your friends in person with the two Joy-Cons, whereas this is about playing like on your own, on like online with a camera. So it does feel like there's a whiff of pandemic proofing on that. But you know, that's the gist of it. I do think it is a very safe launch, but I think that's probably that's good enough now. That's just where we're at. You know, where the people used to like these mental Nintendo, you know, kind of innovations. Those days are probably going to be fewer and fewer. Yeah,
it's one of those ones where with each new game they announce, there's going to be kind of a little mini hype will build for it because it's because it's such a it's more powerful. I remember when the Switch was coming out, it was like, I can't wait to see what a 3D Mario game is going to look like in HD for the first time. And like Odyssey was fantastic. Now it's like, I wonder what they're going to do with 4K and more power. What's the next 3D Mario game going to look like? And invariably when that gets announced, that's when some people will jump on the hype train.
It's going to look like the last one in 4K.
But with extra pixels. So
4K, while we're on the subject, 4K is like the most who cares about 4K?
Wrong.
If this console was 1080p,
no.
I'd be straight in the bin.
Yeah, no.
But genuinely, I would rather have. So what you're saying is you want the game that looks like the last gen one, but in 4K, because that's what you're getting. Because they're using the power to put it into 4K.
They're using DLSS to put it in 4K.
My PC, I mean, I've got an ultra-wide monitor, but it's not 4K. So I play my games at like 1440 or 1080p. That's enough. That's fine. I'd rather have a next-gen looking game at 1080p than a last-gen looking one at 4K, because that's what you're choosing.
No, but they're using DLSS to take it up to 4K, and they're using.
But we're assuming we don't know what. I don't think DLSS is in any of the first-party games yet.
Well, we don't know. We don't even know who's making them though. Like we don't know if.
No, but Mario Kart, I don't think uses DLSS. Certainly, Welcome Tour doesn't.
Yeah, but those
we don't yet know how effective DLSS is on Switch 2.
Yeah,
what the overheads are and stuff like that. That's just a personal aside. I think like 4K. I've not played anything and thought, oh, this is next gen
on the Nintendo Switch 2.
No, on any platform.
No, that's just absolute nonsense. You look at.
I bet you're one of the guys who's like, 120 frames, amazing, so much better than 60.
Literally, see if you play a game in 40 frames a second on 120 frames per second monitor.
40. Yeah, 40. We're not talking about 40. 60 is the most diminishing returns of all time.
You're wrong.
Like, you'd rather have a worse looking game that runs at 120. That is mental.
For Call of Duty, absolutely. That's the only time I use it. This is getting off topic. This is a different conversation.
It depends on the game. It's game by game.
There are certain games that I've seen with my eyes that are some of the best I've ever seen in my life, and they necessitate being 4K. If they were 1080, they'd look shite. Continuing on, David Rad says...
That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I said
so
continuing on.
You think a stunning game looks awful in 1080p?
It looks compressed. Nintendo's continuing with its roughly one game a month release schedule that they mostly kept to on the Switch. So a lot of Switch 2's most anticipated first-party games are coming later in 2025. Of all of those games announced for the Switch 2, which do you wish was also at the launch as a 1-2 for Mario Kart? I'm not going to say Pokemon because that's a really stock answer. I actually wish it was Metroid. I would like a big genre change because I'm not a big racer man.
Game.
Yeah, Chris.
Donkey Kong. I was like a platformer fan anyway, so I always like having a big platformer at launch. That's why I like that PS5 had Astro's Playroom in it. It was enough for me.
What game?
So yeah, I wish we had a good kind of platformer on day one. So Donkey Kong being pushed forward would have been nice.
And are you on my Metroid train? You're a big Kirby Air Riders man.
It would have been nice, right? I don't think it would have been too conflicting for them either as technically a Switch 1 game. It would have been nice. We still don't know when that's coming out, right?
Well, Pokemon's October, so it's September or November.
I think in the last podcast I gave an exact.
Oh yeah, you gave
that pulled out my arse. I was November the 14th or something.
Yeah.
I can't see them making Metroid their big November game.
Well, they said Kirby's this year as well. So are you expecting Kirby, Metroid, Pokemon, and Mario?
I still don't know what their big November game's going to be.
Mario.
No, they're not releasing a Mario game this soon.
No.
Clip that.
There's wicked whispers on
but
the wind.
They just won't. They could be selling Donkey Kong out to die going into that Christmas.
I'll send Donkey Kong out to die because it looks shite.
I'll dress them in advance. Listen, I think that demo was underwhelming for Donkey Kong because the camera was all over the place. But I want to wait for the full product before, because
we should do a new segment on the podcast, weekly segment, which is Scullion has to say something negative about Nintendo.
I just did.
That'll be the weekly thing.
I thought the fact we don't have any at launch is pretty negative.
I got to admire their decision not to send out the review units.
Listen, they're doing God's work, like not giving us slobs. Fucking advance. I say fair play to them.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a title fight coming in July or whenever that Donkey Kong game comes out. When they two have both played it, I cannot wait. I'm not even going to have to say one word, and it's just going to be struck to the waist in battle. Oh God! Right, a couple more.
It's going to come down to either me going, actually, yeah, it was shit, or Andy saying, actually, it gets better. It's going to be one or the other. I think we'll be in agreement.
I'll eat 10 hats if you come on here and say Donkey Kong shit. Jamie Hartigan. Do you think Cyberpunk has been built up as the litmus test for third-party games? If it does well commercially and performs well, I presume it means technically, do you see games like Baldur's Gate and Expedition 33 being prioritized by those studios? I think everyone's going to stick everything on this, because why wouldn't
everything is going to be released on this thing. And it's like, it's such a unique situation, right? Go and have a look at that launch lineup. I mean, I know it's like, again, like what Chris was saying earlier, and I took the piss a bit, like old games. But if you're not like a big PlayStation guy or Xbox guy, the amount of games that are going to come to this thing is insane.
Yeah,
because you've never had a situation before where a console's launched and it's been unlocked to an entire generation of games, right?
Yeah.
Like the last Switch, it's like when it came in, it was always like kind of like halfway through the PS4 gen. I mean, Wii U could already run like PS3 games and stuff like that, right? It's not like it's like, oh, finally we can bring these games to a Nintendo console.
Yeah,
there are like there's a decade of amazing games that can now be played portably on Switch,
and no one has to pretend that stuff like The Witcher on Switch is actually great and looks totally fine and it's playable.
It's absolutely like awful.
Yeah, like we're actually at a point now where, like, if you're not a pure graphics pedo, like, the Switch 2 is perfectly powerful enough to do everything you could possibly want. Like, it's got to the point now where I'm playing Expedition 33 finally, and I was like, I want to stop this. And
I reckon we're going to get back to, do you remember at the start of the Switch 1 gen where every multi-platform game, like indie game, it was always, I'm playing that on Switch.
Yeah.
I'm getting that on Switch. I'll get that on Switch. I think we might get back to that now.
Definitely.
For a little while at least. Because again, I've said this before, we pretty much peaked at PS4 gen. Like everything is sort of a PS4 game now. Like it is. Like, everything can run on a PS4, but you just can. Name me something that can't. Like the biggest games of the last year, Wukong and Assassin's Creed Shadows, run on a Steam Deck. They just do. Like it's not like the situation before. Like those games would never run on a Switch 1. You could not get them to run on it, but you could get them to run on a Switch 2.
Yeah,
there's pretty much nothing out there now that couldn't be squeezed down on Switch 2.
We've said this before, but the Series S is the thing that keeps those Switch 2 ports live, because although the Series S is obviously more powerful than the Switch 2, it's not a million miles more powerful, where anyone who's downgrading a PS5 and Series X game to the Series S won't then be able to downgrade it a bit more for the Switch 2, especially when Steam Deck's on their mind as well.
But it's also like half of Sony's user base is still on PS4. You know, like for years they were still putting their first party games on PS4.
Yeah.
There's after that charade of the SSD, fundamentally changing how we build games, and then they just put it on PS4 anyway. Yeah. I just don't believe
I think that's missing key details. Every time you tell this story is missing completely key details about how the games actually run and perform compared on the different platforms. Sure, you can put anything on anything. Like you can probably...
that's what I'm saying though, but you're going to change it to what? You said it's going to run at 60 frames. No, it can run.
My argument is always, sure, it can run, but is it a good enough experience? Like, you can't just say that everything...
So a different conversation then?
Yeah. I don't think
you could not put Cyberpunk on Switch 1.
Bet you could.
Like, but but you just couldn't. Like, you'd have to redesign the game, right? You couldn't, like, so, I'm not saying they're going to perform great. You could put pretty much everything, I reckon, on a PS4, on a Switch 2, and it will fundamentally be the same game. It looks like less textures be shitter, like there might be some load times, the frame rate will be lower, but you can put those games in. There are a lot of games you physically could not put on a Switch.
That bit that you just ran through is the parts that are important to me and why I play on the most powerful console ever made, the PlayStation 5 Pro, available now.
That's the sad
game breaker.
Without doing the old man shouts at cloud thing, right? That was why, and it took me a couple of years to understand this difference between like your generation and our generation, is that like, I remember, like, I was such a big thing where I was so disappointed that Sony announced that they were putting their PS5 games on PS4, and you didn't get it. But it's like, for us, it's supposed to be a generational leap, right? From our entire adulthood and childhood, when a new console came, it made like, whatever you could imagine could now be put on the screen. It unlocked, so many more opportunities for developers. Whereas now it literally looks prettier, runs better. That's why I say we peaked at PS4, because pretty much any idea you can come up with, you can make on a PS4. Like, I'm fine with that level. It comes back to like the 4K 1080p talk. Like, I'm fine. A PS4 felt like, to me, over the last 40 years of gaming, that was where it's like, well, pretty much developers can make what they want now.
We're at the point basically where you theoretically could put stuff on the Switch, the original Switch, but it's a case of would you want to. Like Doom on Switch looked like a penis, and like stuff like Hogwarts Legacy had long loading times, and by all accounts those are taken out for the Switch 2 version. The Switch could have handled all these games, but they would have run like absolute dog shit. The Switch 2 will run them at a more user friendly way that'll be more and more kind of pleasing experience, and that's what I think is looking good in terms of ports.
It's like how, I'll give you another example. Destiny 1, one of my favorite games ever. Like, have you ever seen that running on an Xbox 360?
Yeah,
I've never. But what a game!
But we were desperate for them to like retire that version, because you could see how the scope and size of the areas had to be designed to accommodate the fact that it ran on that machine. You know, the amount of enemies that could be on screen, things like that. You were bottlenecked by the support for that system. Whereas you're kind of not now.
Will we get GTA 6 on Switch 2?
I think we'll get GTA 5 on Switch.
I think we'll get GTA 5. Listen, if you put GTA 5 on 360 and PS3...
GTA 6 will come out on Switch too. Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. Confirmed.
I don't think there's any reason why it wouldn't or couldn't. I just don't know if it necessarily will, because they make weird decisions. Like, but yeah.
Rockstar's got that odd history with Nintendo, though, where they don't completely shun Nintendo. The Rockstar and Nintendo are occasional bedfellows.
That random LA port.
It feels like the sort of thing they'll bring out on Switch 2 like 3 years later without any warning. But yeah, that would be an interesting one. That's the one that'll get all the graphics nerds. For want of a better phrase.
I cannot wait to see how that thing runs, even on a Series S. So on a Switch 2, like it'll be difficult. I
feel we're straying.
Oh no,
we haven't talked about Switch 2 for about half an hour.
Yeah, let's talk about Andy's incorrect opinions about graphics. Final question, and this is a serious one, so everyone stop smiling. Raf says, this is the second Nintendo console launch in a row with no Funky Barn. Discuss, Chris.
Funky Barn was a hidden gem on Wii U. It was actually complete dog shit. And yeah, it's a shame that we didn't get Funky Barn on Switch. We didn't get Funky Barn now on Switch 2, which is galling.
We spent an hour complaining about a lot of things, and we've not really got to the crux of the issue, that there's not enough weird shite on Nintendo Switch 2 to launch, in my opinion. Whereas Carnival games...
Well, maybe there is, mate, but we haven't played any of it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, exactly. For all we know, Survival Kids is mental. But yeah, it's weird in that respect. But in some ways, I'm kind of glad, because you look back at those other launches and you look at the weird ones ended up being the shit ones. Like GameCube had a lot of shite on day one, and like even you look at, I know people are saying Switch 2 is the most underwhelming like hardware launch. I think 3DS was the most underwhelming software launch when you launch with Pilot Wings Resort
that's
and Nintendo's
fair,
Mario Kart. I knew Mario Kart kind of shits all over that, but yeah, it would be nice to have had a weird. The only kind of quirky one is Japan only. There's an idle management simulation game in Japan, but it's Japanese language only, so you can't even go on the eShop and download it for a laugh.
You've got the collector's edition pre-ordered.
Listen, we see the mouse man it comes with.
It's like
God rest her. But it's yeah, it is weird that it is a safe launch lineup. It's big names, but it's a relatively safe one. And I'm hoping the quirkier stuff comes. To Andy's point, that the dev kits might not be as wide ranging, and hopefully when the dev kits get in the hands of more studios, like a Suda51 or someone like that, but who knows what he's working on. The weirder, quirkier stuff is where Switch 2's extra power could be put to interesting use.
Andy, final words during our last broadcast before we enter the Switch 2 era. How are you feeling? How are you doing? What do you love about graphics?
I have nothing more to add. I pretty much said my piece.
See above.
He's a broadcaster's dream, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Scullion, as we enter level 8, I believe, of Chris Scullion's life.
Don't start that shite. Listen. Move on.
I would like to correct the record on that. I laughed at what Andy said. I didn't think what you said was
you were ready
funny.
to laugh. You were ready for the laugh. Regardless, the point is, no, I'm excited. I've been excited for a while, and that continues to build. I think the day you're not excited, like at least partly excited about a new hardware launch, is a sad day for people who.
Wasn't this the PS5 Pro? You weren't getting that.
That wasn't new hardware. That wasn't new hardware. That was a lot of old shit. If that was affordable, fine. That was comically priced.
Get your bread up.
The only thing I'll ask Nintendo, if this camera ends up being as good,
ask them. Go straight down the monitor.
Shigsy, is if this camera thing ends up being as popular as it could be, as Andy said, give us a wee USB camera that clips on the Switch 2 itself.
Yeah, why the bloody hell hasn't Switch 2 got a camera on it?
Because handheld, if you're playing handheld,
that's the most baffling.
Someone somewhere is going to make a USB-C camera that plugs into the USB-C.
Why has he not got a camera on it?
Switch 2 and just nestles on the top of it.
So they put a button that starts chat, but you have to plug a camera in and sit it down on a table. It makes no sense.
And it's the fact they've not released a little clip-on camera. Like because unless am I going on?
That's baffling to me.
Am I going on the train with its great Wi-Fi and going to carry this wee Pixar lamp camera like with me while I'm on the train? Bullshit. Get that fixed. But other than that, I mean,
that's going to be the little quote at the bottom of the thumbnail. Bullshit. Get that fixed.
There you go. There's your negative comment about Nintendo. Bullshit. No clip-on webcam.
Okay, closing thoughts. I love video games. I love new video games. I love video game hardware. I love taking things out of boxes. So this is going to be a good week. The thing that's got me most excited about this is the prospect of buying 3 of them at Glasgow Airport and us setting them up on the plane. That's really what's made me laugh about this whole situation. It's probably going to be, for me, something I play quite a lot at the start, and then it goes into stasis until the Nintendo stuff comes out, as was the case for the original Switch, because it's not going to be my daily driver for games, but I'm looking forward to it. My number one question, what are they going to do about coloured Joy-Cons when they have those stupid blue and orange stripes inside the console? That is my number one point of confusion, but who knows? Maybe those are removable with a claw hammer. Until then.
We magnetic strips, I think.
Oh, really?
A wee very thin magnetic coloured strip will come with the Joy-Con. You can clip it in.
$79.99 just for the strips. As Andy said at the top, our Nintendo Switch 2 coverage will be coming in the future after Summer Game Fest taking place. This weekend we'll have reviews of all the big games for Nintendo Switch 2, and in the meantime we'll be posting stuff to, socials, the VGC Discord, the Patreon. Maybe we play Mario Kart for money while we're in LA and film some of that. We'll see. But until next time, until the Switch 2 era begins, say goodbye, Chris.
Level 8, let's go. Goodbye, Chris.
Here we go. Say goodbye, Andy.
Bye.
And we'll see you next time. VGC is supported by Patreon. Check out patreon.com/videogameschronicle for more podcasts, ad-free browsing, and extra content. Thank you for your support.